What is an instructional designer? How do you become one? If you're watching this video, you're probably looking for answers. In this video, I'm sitting down with Nicole Papaioannou Lugara, founder and learning strategist at Your Instructional Designer, to find out everything you need to know about becoming an instructional designer. Let's dive in. I'm Nicole Papaioannou Lugara. I am a learning strategist, a social learning enthusiast, and the founder of an instructional design agency called Your Instructional Designer. And first and foremost, I'm an instructional designer. If I wanted to just simplify it in the easiest way possible, I'd say instructional designers make things learnable. And that's really the primary goal of the job. I mean, from there, it can look like a lot of other things. You know, you might be creating curriculum, you might be creating learning materials, you might be doing other parts of the instructional design process, but really at the heart of it, make stuff learnable. I didn't know I wanted to be an instructional designer when I became one. Very much fell into it. I knew I wanted to move across the country to Los Angeles, so I started looking at job postings, and when I saw the instructional designer job for this company in LA, it touched base on all of these things I really enjoyed doing: designing multimedia, designing online courses. I was like, yeah, I think I can do this, and I could. I really enjoyed the job once I got there. The challenge and the beauty of being an instructional designer is you could probably learn skills forever, because you're sort of part second degree teacher, part journalist, part marketer. There's a lot of skill sets that fall under that. And so what I usually tell people is learn a lot about a little and a little about a lot under any branch of instructional design. So that might be becoming really great at analysis, becoming really great at designing the curriculum, designing the learning materials, doing the instructional writing. It might mean becoming really great at developing, especially if you're into e-learning. And there's the space for implementation and all of that as well. I think you're usually either designing, right, doing design documentation, so again, that curriculum, or putting together storyboards, or outlining scripts, or really ideating the experience. Or you might be spending your day developing learning materials, and that could look like a little bit of graphic design, a little bit of writing, a little bit of video editing. Who knows, what's on your plate that day, but it's a fun job because you usually get to dabble in all of those areas to some degree at some point in your career. So we interact with a lot of subject matter experts as instructional designers, and a lot of other key players, or you probably call them stakeholders. It could be everybody from the CEO of the company down to the intern. It really just depends on who you need to be talking to get the answers you need for that project. You never stop learning, but also it's a little intimidating sometimes because you feel like you never know enough. So that can be a challenge just from a mindset perspective that you might find yourself falling into. It's been super, super important to set expectations, have very clear guidelines. And, we work with external, but client can be, the people who are internally requesting training. We start every single project with a sync up meeting, which some people might call a kickoff meeting. And we really try to get everybody there. So literally CEO to intern, whoever needs to be part of that decision-making process needs to be part of that meeting on day one, so we can make sure everybody's aligned. That sync up meeting is a really important part, and I would encourage anyone who's doing a project to do that, if nothing else. It just helps us really make sure we're putting together the best solution and being able to take the time to be creative. That we usually end up with a good result. I love talking to people. I love the people I work with. I love talking to our subject matter experts. I think it's such a cool thing. There's so much you can learn from people, and in other roles you might be a little more narrowly focused with whose experiences you get to come into contact with. But as an ID, especially since we're outsourced, I get to learn about all kinds of things all the time. So that's been a really fun part for me. And it's also really fun when you get to see the impact of your work. That's definitely a nice little win too. So when we talk about education for instructional designers, I think people want the neat box answer, you should go to college to become an instructional designer. I don't know if that's necessarily the answer. Not that it can't be the answer. There's certainly an avenue to do that, but it doesn't have to be the only answer. So if you're looking into education, I think it's about, are you an effective communicator? Do you know a bit about learning theory and how people learn? Maybe a little cognitive science is a nice background to have. Psychology could be a nice background to have. I think marketing is a really powerful tool, understanding how we influence people and change their behaviors. Once you have the baseline of education or the baseline of capabilities, it's about continuing to educate yourself. Definitely there are myths in instructional design or about instructional design that I would like to bust. And the very first one is that you need to be a subject matter expert to be able to design instruction. My very first job, before I had any corporate instructional design experience, I was an English professor, right? Like my PhD was in English, not in instructional design. And my first job was to design aircraft systems training for the Airbus A320 for pilots. And I knew nothing about aviation, nothing about aircraft systems, very little about the pilot, but through the things that I do well, I was able to translate the pilot's experiences and those resources into a really great training experience for online delivery. And so that's just a myth we need to bust right now. Like, hiring managers, stop hiring people who only have a financial background for your financial instructional design position and things like that. Look for people who have the skill set of information architecture and communication over subject matter expertise. For those who want to become instructional designers, what I would say is to start looking at the job descriptions, because I think there's this idea that there's just an ID. It's one job. First of all, we don't even always go by the ID title, right? That's a whole issue in and of itself. Some of us are learning experience designers. Some of us are like learning specialists. Some of us are e-learning specialists, instructional designers. They kind of all get lumped under one umbrella because people who set up hiring don't necessarily all understand, the different types of roles. So when you start to actually look at them, you're going to see the skills that pop up. And that is like the magic key to everything, because it's going to tell you, one, these are the skills I need to highlight in my job materials. So your resume, if you have a portfolio, if you're going out and connecting, networking with people, these are the skills you need to highlight. And on the flip side, it'll start to tell you if you have any skills gaps you need to start working on, to make yourself more competitive. People ask me now as a hiring manager, and I wish when I was reviewing hiring materials, I could more clearly see that people had done that in their job materials, because you don't always see that. I think that's a big one.